Welcome back to another Notebook Check Tech Review. I've got the Acer Aspire VX5 here, also known as the VX15, and it's the variant here, the VX5-591G-75C4. It's a 2017 variant with a GTX 1050 inside, and we've classed it as a multimedia device rather than a gaming device. But we'll take a look at some of the gaming test results later in the video. I've got a couple of demos to show you as well. Core i7, 8 gigs of RAM. Unfortunately, there's a spinning hard drive inside, which over the, a few weeks I've actually had this, have really made themselves known, has really made itself known, sorry. That hard drive is slowing the startups down, slowing the background indexing down, slowing updates down, slowing startup of programs down. Fortunately, and one of the advantages of the nice things about this is that for €1,200 you're getting a device that has some upgrade capability inside. There's no access port on the back, but you can get that back off fairly easily and work some upgrades into it. Or you can pay another €200 and have a 256 gigs SSD, and I would totally recommend that because running the system on a hard drive is nothing you want to do in 2017, especially when you've got a lot of programs running, as you might do on this Core i7 variant. It scored 85%, not a bad score in our test results. We of course marked it down for that hard drive, but there's a lot of nice things about this, including the Wi-Fi performance, which was pretty good. Core i7 CPU performance is good, and that graphic card, the GTX 1050, is going to bring you up to high-level 1080p gaming in most cases. So there's a fair bit of scope for gaming here. Video editors, photo editors might also be interested in the screen, which is matte, IPS, and has a reasonable level of contrast and a reasonable level of color accuracy. Let's take a look at the keyboard and a little bit more about the screen, the touchpad as well. It's got a backlight. It's got a fairly soft concave key setting, which I like. Some people may not like it, but I think if you're a heavier typer, you're going to like that. It's fairly quiet, but it hasn't got that maybe that click through that some people are looking for on their keys. Touchpad is a slightly different story. I wasn't too impressed with the touchpad, although I have to say that hard drive was actually causing some stickiness, some slowing down, which was really affecting my first sort of usage hours of this device. So the touchpad is not perfect. There's no separate touch buttons, so there's a reasonable click, and it's a reasonably light, was not a great noisy click on it, so actually not too bad around here. Let's take a look at some of the ports on this though. We've got a USB-C, but we haven't got a USB 3.1 Gen 2 with Thunderbolt, so it's only a USB 3.1 Gen 1. And that is on this side. So let's just quickly go around the ports here. There's that USB-C, 2 USB 3s and the HDMI port. There's your gigabit Ethernet port as well. On the other side, I'm just going to pull the power out of that. We have power, Kensington lock, standard USB 2 port here, and an SD card reader. Now that SD card reader is connected to the USB 2 bus, so the performance of this is really not that good. It's one of those 20 plus megabyte per second devices, and we've seen that throughput for many years now. 2017, we're seeing devices getting well over 100, 150, up to 200 megabytes per second on the SD card slots. 25 megabytes per second just isn't good enough for 2017, and we marked it down for that. There's a quick look at the screen there, and look at some of the viewing angles. You can see it is non-glossy. There's obviously some reflection there, and it's a fairly wide angle display. Take a look at some of the performance test results in our full review, and I've got some of those up on the screen for you right now. You'll see all the details of our CPU and GPU tests in the full review. Just to note that Core i7 is a quad-core variant, and it's bringing in good performance results. So you'll be able to run any Office application on this, and you can get into some heavy Photoshop work and some 1080p video editing. Even if you get an SSD, you might be able to do some 4K video editing on it as well. Let's just take a look at some of the gaming in real life on it. Thanks to my neighbor Jeff for doing those for me. He's the gaming king, I'm not, so that's why I got him in to do some demos. to note, noise and heat. There's no great buildup of noise when it's in its quiescent state, and we really have to push it hard before we actually get the noise levels high on this thing. Heat is not too much of a problem. You'll see our heat maps there, and on our full review there's more detail as well. In terms of loudspeaker performance, average. There's a bit of middle there, and maybe a little bit of bass, not a lot on the high end. Volumes are reasonable, but it's not anything to call home about. It's average for speakers in this class. So don't forget this scored 85% in our full review. You can check that out at notebookcheck.com. I want to go through the pros and cons for you of this, well, let's say value variant of the VX15. 1,200 euros with a hard drive was the main problem here. But it's got a fairly good build, a fairly good, strong, stable chassis. Wi-Fi performance was good to very good. On the opposite side of that SD card performance was very bad. There's a good screen on it and a nice IPS screen and a reasonable keyboard and mouse touchpad. And don't forget, it's got the 8-thread variant of the Core i7 quad-core CPU inside. It is at 2.4 kilos, relatively big and heavy. There are some variants out there around the 2 kilo mark, so this is at 20% heavier, a little bit on the heavy side. There's no access panel on the back of the device, so if you're looking at upgrades, you'll need to take the whole panel off the back. And on that screen, although it is reasonable, some of that color area is not covered, so of the colors that are there are reasonably accurate, but there's some colors that are laying outside the range that this can work with. Finally, I want to mention it again. That is the fact that this is running on a hard drive, and this is 2017. If you're thinking about this VX15, look at an SSD variant. I'm pretty sure your out-of-the-box experience is going to be way better than mine was. In fact, it took a couple of days, or let's say 3 or 4 hours of letting this thing work through indexing and updates and installations and deinstallations to try and clean it up. And it really wasn't a nice out-of-the-box experience. So go for the SSD variant, either the 200 euro upgrade, or have a look inside, have a look at some of our test results, and you'll see that you can upgrade the SSD yourself. Sorry it's taken a long time to get this video out. VX15. I have got a yoga coming up, and I'm going to take a look at the cameras on Huawei P10 and P10 Plus in a video coming up soon. So stay tuned, subscribe, and thanks very much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.